A Minnesota company was recently awarded a multi-million-dollar taxpayer-funded contract to provide medical care to jail inmates in Anoka County. But a new KARE 11 investigation finds the company failed to disclose parts of its troubled history, and county leaders failed to fact-check.
The committee recommends approval and execution of contract with Mend Correctional Health.
Fall of 2020, the Anoka County Board of Commissioners awards Mend Correctional Care a hefty taxpayer-funded contract to provide medical services to its jail and correctional facilities.
With a maximum contract value of $7,237,033.
Something was really suspect and suspicious about how the contract became about.
Lindsay Helgeson suggested KARE 11 investigates look into the contract. Full disclosure, she's a former Anoka County employee, a public health nurse who worked in the jail and lost her job when the county decided to hire an outside contractor.
There was false information we feel like they went on to make their decision.
KARE 11 dug into Anoka's contract with Mend and discovered Nurse Lindsay was right. There was false information, some of it tied to problems KARE 11 reported months ago. Allegations Mend failed to provide medical care in other Minnesota jails.
Medically neglected, abused, till his death.
Delshia Perry's son, Hardell Sherrill, died in the Beltrami County Jail in 2018. A whistleblowing jail nurse filed complaints with the Department of Corrections, the state medical and nursing boards, describing neglectful care by jail staff and the jail doctor, Todd Leonard, the owner of Mend. Those ongoing investigations, which the FBI is now also involved in, sparked protests outside Med Board headquarters.
Suspend Dr. Todd Leonard's license now!
When Anoka requested bids for a medical provider for the lucrative jail contract last year, they instructed bidders provide information concerning any complaints filed with or by professional and state or federal licensing regulatory organizations within the past 10 years. In the spot where Mend was supposed to disclose complaints, they wrote about their professional responsibility and integrity, but no mention of the complaints filed regarding Hardell's death.
That's not the only thing Mend failed to disclose to Anoka County.
Anoka also mandated contract proposals must include information about pending litigation or litigation resolved within the past 10 years. Mend disclosed a number of lawsuits, but made no mention of their most costly one at the time, the 2015 settlement in the wrongful death case brought by the family of a Stearns County inmate that cost taxpayers in Mend a combined $1.45 million. Mend paid $850,000 of that total, according to Bob Bennett, the attorney who brought the lawsuit.
Was Mend aware that they had to pay money to settle the Baxter-Knudsen case?
Well, as I recall, Dr. Leonard was at the settlement conference. He was clearly aware.
It's not the first time KARE 11 has raised questions about Mend failing to disclose requested information while landing public contracts. When Mend received the Olmsted County Jail contract in 2016, Dr. Leonard didn't disclose how from 2011 to 2013, his medical license was restricted and conditioned by the Minnesota Board of Medical Practice, based upon his unethical and unprofessional conduct, failure to maintain adequate medical records, and inappropriate prescribing practices. Were you and the county aware of Dr. Leonard's history?
I certainly was not.
Anoka County leadership refused to go on camera and answer questions about whether they fact-checked any of what Mend told them before awarding the $7 million contract.
I don't think that's doing your due diligence.
Dr. Leonard with Mend wouldn't go on camera either, instead responding by email. This information has been communicated to Anoka County officials. An open records request to the county revealed Dr. Leonard did finally disclose the complaints and litigation last month on January 6th, after KARE 11 began asking questions, 3 months after the contract had already been awarded. He also sent the county a lengthy statement about how Mend has been the focus of repeated negative reporting by one news organization and how these unfounded and unwarranted attacks are irresponsible and dangerous.
When KARE 11 asked Mend to provide evidence and details on what, if anything, in our reporting has been false, We got no response. For KARE 11 Investigates, I'm AJ Legault.